We spent a good portion of the year talking about factoring, and our methods of factoring are GCF, which is greatest common factor, split the middle, difference of squares, grouping, and sum and difference of cubes. We focused on GCF, split the middle, difference of squares, grouping, and we haven't really done that much with factoring cubes since probably late August or early September. So I want to go back over how do we factor sum and difference of cubes. And the way that I like to teach it is with SOAP, which is just a little memory technique that I'll talk about momentarily. But the thing about sum and difference of cubes is we'll have two terms in there. But we need to have perfect cubes to be able to do the problem at all. So we need to refresh our memory on what are the cubes. For starters, 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. Or 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Or 3 times 3 times 3, 27 is a perfect cube. 4 cubed, 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. 6 cubed, 6 times 6 times 6, 216. 7 cubed is 343. 8 cubed is 512. 9 cubed is 729. And 10 cubed is 1000. And we at least need to be familiar with these numbers so that we can recognize that we can or cannot factor when it comes to factoring the cubes. And what we looked at is we looked at the pattern, and I want to talk about SOAP within this pattern. This is just the most basic of the factoring cubes. So the top one is the sum of cubes, the bottom one is the difference of cubes. And what we do is we turn this problem into a little parentheses and a big parentheses. And to fill this in, we're going to take the cubed root of a cubed. And cube rooting and cubing are inverse operations. We get A. We're going to take the cube root of b cubed, which is b. And then we're going to put the signs in. And that's where the SOAP comes from. SOAP is same sign, opposite sign, opposite of the positive sign that we just put in, and then AP is always positive. The last term is always positive in SOAP. Once we have that, then we can finish the problem. A cubed divided by A is A squared. And B cubed divided by B is B squared. And remember, we already put the sign into the problem. So the last part is we take the A that we originally found and the B that we originally found, and we multiply those together. It is independent of the sign because we already used SOAP to come up with the sign. Hopefully not new, it's just something that we haven't looked at for a while. Down here, the only difference in this problem is that this is A cubed minus B cubed. So this A and B and A squared and AB and B squared are all the same. Nothing changes there. It's going to be the signs. And the signs are same sign. So we have A cubed minus B cubed. So that's going to be the same sign as the problem. Then this next one's going to be opposite of the sign that we just came up with. So opposite of negative is positive. And lastly is going to be always positive. Those are the most basic of the cube, And it depends on your teacher, but some teachers expect you to memorize that pattern. That is not me. I prefer not to memorize them. So let's look at some actual examples to get them back in our head here. And we're going to factor completely. Don't forget to watch out for greatest common factor. But as we look up at our chart, what we see in this particular problem is that 64 is up there on our chart. 125 is up there in our chart. So we can start with a little parentheses and a big parentheses. And then we look at the 64 here. Well, what's the cubed root of 64? And by the way, if you don't remember and you want to use your calculator, you can go to math and number 4 and 64. I mean, it's right up there on your chart, but I want to show you how to use it on the calculator. I think the other number was 125. So again, it's math, number 4, and 125. Cubed root of 64 is 4. Cubed root of x cubed is x. Cubed root of 125 is 5. And now let's use SOAP to put the signs in. Same sign. And there was a minus in the problem, so that's going to be a minus. Our next sign is going to be the opposite of that minus that we just put in. It's going to be a plus. And our last sign is going to be always positive. And now we're done with signs. We don't have to worry about signs at all when we do these. We want to figure out what goes in these last two positions. When we start, we're going to take 64x cubed divided by 4x. Well, 64 divided by 4 is 16. X cubed divided by x is x squared. 125 divided by 5 is 25. Notice where I put that 25. I put it in the last position. And then our last step is to take the 4x that we originally found and we multiply it by the 5, ignoring the signs. We already put the signs in. 4x times 5 is 20x. And we factored that cube. As we take a look at problem number 2, we look up above and we don't see a 2. We don't see a 16 on our chart. So then we have to ask ourselves, do we have a greatest common factor? And what we see is that these are both even numbers, so we're going to factor out a 2. And we're left with x cubed plus 8. And now we do. It's 1x cubed. 1 is a perfect cube. 8 is a perfect cube. And now that we have it turned into a cube, we can write our little parentheses and our big parentheses. And the cubed root of x cubed is x. The cubed root of 8 is 2. Again, look at your chart. Otherwise, use math and function 4 on your calculator. And then we can put in our signs. Same sign. Same as what the problem started with. Then we're going to have the opposite of that sign. So the opposite of positive is negative. But our last value is always positive. And now we can finish the problem. X cubed divided by x is x squared. We had 3 x's, we took out 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Notice where we put that 4 in the last position. And to get that middle position, we're going to take the x that we originally found and we're going to multiply it by the 2. We already have our sign in there. And we factored a cube. Hopefully, as we're going through this, it's coming back to you, but it has been a long time since we factored a cube. We'll look at one more problem. And as we look at 81 and 192, and we look up above in our chart, we don't see an 81 or 192. And 81 is not an even number. nor it, and well, 192 is, but it's not divisible by 2, but I wonder if we have a greatest common factor. So 2 doesn't work, but if we pull out our calculator here, 81 divided by 3, that works, but does 192 divided by 3? And they do. And in fact, 27, if we look back at our chart, is a perfect cube. 64 is a perfect cube. So we can factor out a greatest common factor of 3. We're left with 27x cubed plus 64. And once we factor out the greatest common factor, then we can write down our little parentheses and our big parentheses. 27 divided by 3 is, oh, that's wrong. Cube root of 27. Get this right. Cube root of 27 is 3. Cube root of x cubed is x. Cube root of 64, if you look above, how did we get 64? We took 4 times 4 times 4, so the cube root of 64 is 4. And then we put in our signs. Well, it's the same sign. It's the same sign as what we started with. Then it's going to be the opposite sign of what we just wrote down. So we wrote down a plus, so we're going to write down a minus. And then our last is always positive. And now we can do the division. 27 divided by 3 is 9. X cubed divided by x. We had 3 x's, we took out 1, we got 2. 64 divided by 4 is 16. And lastly, we're going to multiply the 3x and the 4 together. Ignore the signs. It's just those values. 3 times 4 is 12x. We factor the cube. So hopefully that's coming back to you a little bit. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to flip over. And I called this split the middle in a little bit more. So we're going to start off here factoring x squared minus 4x minus 32. And when we split the middle, first thing that we're going to look at is 1 times 32 is 32. And the factors of 32 are, just like I said, 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 4 times 8. Will any of those combine to be 4? And we see here, in fact, it's going to be 4 minus 8. We've had lots of experience with split the middle, so hopefully this is very quick for you. And then it's going to be plus 4x minus 8x. And here's a group, and here's a group. The greatest common factor in that first group is the lowest exponent of x to the first. We had 2 x's, we took out 1, we're left with 1. 4x divided by x is 4. Be careful, there's a minus. You really want to write that minus down. But when we look at the greatest common factor, in terms of numbers, it's 8. Negative 8x divided by negative 8 is x. Negative 32 divided by negative 8 is positive 4. And what we see is that we have an x plus 4 from each group. And then we have an x minus 8. Again, that should not be something that we've forgotten. It seems to reoccur over and over throughout the year. But what if we take it and change that problem, which was a quadratic, to a quartic? So now, instead of x squared, it's x to the 4th. Minus 4x squared minus 32. And the question is, what changes when we factor a quartic from a quadratic? So originally, what we had is we had x, and x, I have to go back and look, I shouldn't have to, x plus 4, and we had x minus 8. But x times x is x squared. How can we change that x to make it x to the 4th now? Well, let's put a square root on it. And then let's see if that's all we had to do to change it. So we split the middle, but we split the middle on the last one. But what I want to look at here is checking it. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. Good start. Double distributive property or a FOIL. X squared times negative 8 is negative 8x squared. 4 times x squared. And then 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. And when we combine like terms here, it looks like we will end up minus 8x squared plus 4x is minus 4x squared minus 32. In other words, we can still split the middle when we're working with a quartic polynomial. And we're going to do that just like we solve, or not solve today, but factor a quadratic. We're going to split the middle. For instance, if we take x to the 4th minus x squared minus 30, the number in front of our x to the 4th is a 1. So 1 times 30 is 30. And it's 1 times 30. 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6. Will any of those combine to be 1? 5 and a 6. In fact, it needs to combine to be a negative, so it's going to be 5 minus 6. We're going to split the middle. We're going to write down the x to the 4th, the minus 30. And now, when we split the middle here, it's going to be plus 5x squared, because our middle term is a square. And it's going to be minus 6x squared, because the middle term is an x squared. But then everything else is going to be the same. Here's our group. There's another group. Watch out for that minus sign. Greatest common factor in our first group is x squared. And factor that out. X to the 4th divided by x squared. So we had 4x's, we took out 2. We have 2. 5x squared divided by x squared is 5. Watch out for the minus sign. Greatest common factor in the next group is 6. Negative 6x squared divided by negative 6 is x squared. Negative 30 divided by negative 6 is positive 5. And what we see is we see an x squared plus 5 and an x squared plus 5 in each group. So we end up with x squared plus 5 times x squared minus 6. By the way, it doesn't matter if you write x squared minus 6 first and x squared plus 5 second. We just want to get the factors. But what we just did is we factored a quartic instead of a quadratic. We use the same method. We make it a little bit harder as we get close to finishing here. What makes it harder is this time we have a 3 in front of the x to the 4th. But when we split the middle, we are still going to follow the same procedures. 3 times 5 is 15. And the factors of 15 are 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. couple of nice things about this one is there's all positives in here. And 3 and 5 are going to combine to be 8. 3 plus 5. So we've got 3x to the 4th and the plus 5. And now we're splitting the middle. The only difference is that the middle has an x squared term. So it's going to be plus 3x squared. It's going to be plus 5x squared. Make sure that you're using the middle value. And now we can group. So within our group here, in the first group, greatest common factor of the numbers is 3. Greatest common factor of the variables is the lowest exponent, which is x squared. And when we factor out 3x squared, 3 divided by 3 is 1. X to the 4th divided by x squared. We had 4 x's, we took out 2. We still have 2. 3x squared divided by 3x squared is 1. And that's why I wanted to put that in. We need that 1 in there. Over here, plus, where's the common factor? Just a 5 in the second group. 5x squared divided by 5 is x squared. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Yes, we have to write the 1. But now, in each group, we have an x squared plus 1. And then we also have 3x squared plus 5. Don't forget that we could still have greatest common factor in these types of problems, so we always want to keep our eyes open for that. But we just factored out quartic, once again, quartic being x to the 4th power. And as we finish up on our notes here, again, the difficulty is that there's a number in front of the x to the 4th, but 10 times 18 is 180. And the factors of 180 are 1 and 180, 2 and 90, 3 and 60, 4 and 45, 5 and 36, 6 and 30, 7, no, 8, no, 9 and 20, 10 and 18, and finally 12 and 15 is going to work for us to get the 27. To come up with negative 27, it's going to have to be a negative 12 and a negative 15 as we split the middle. So we've got 10x to the 4th, the plus 18. And again, what you need to watch out for, the only slight difference is that the middle term is x squared now. Minus 12 x squared minus 15 x squared. Then we're going to group and finish. Our greatest common factor in the first group between 10 and 12 is 2. Between x to the 4th and x squared, it's the lowest exponent, which is x squared. 10 divided by 2, it's 5. X to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared. We had 4 x's, we took out 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. X squared divided by x squared is 1. We had 2 x's, we took them out. We don't need to write it down again. Be careful. There's a minus there. I want to stress that one last time. Between 15 and 18, the common factor is a 3. 15x squared divided by 3 is 5. Sorry, negative 15x squared divided by negative 3 is positive 5x squared. Positive 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. And now from each group, we have the 5x squared minus 6. And we have the 2x squared minus 3.